She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because you forgot who you were when you first met her. Listen closely. The moment a woman loses emotional connection, it's rarely about one fight, one mistake, or one text you didn't send. It's about a slow shift she felt but you didn't notice. At the start, you had gravity, you had direction, your life had movement. You weren't chasing her approval, you were inviting her into your world. That energy is rare, and when it fades, something inside her goes quiet. Most men think regret comes from proving value after she's gone. They flood her phone, they explain, they promise change, they perform emotional CPR on a relationship that already lost oxygen. But regret doesn't come from begging. Regret comes from contrast. It comes when she looks at you and sees the man she underestimated. The psychology is simple but uncomfortable. Attraction is tied to perceived future, not past memories, not apologies, future. When she believes your future is small, chaotic, or dependent on her, her emotions shut down. When she believes your future is expanding, disciplined, and powerful, her emotions wake up. Regret lives in that awakening. Here's the first truth you were never taught. You don't make a woman regret losing you by chasing her. You make her regret losing you by becoming a man she can no longer reach, not out of cruelty, out of growth. Silence backed by progress speaks louder than any paragraph you could write. Your mind wants revenge, validation, closure. Her mind responds to evidence. Evidence that you didn't collapse. Evidence that your identity wasn't built around her presence. Evidence that your absence didn't make you smaller, it made you sharper. This is where most people fail. They try to improve for her, they post for her, they train for her, they dress better for her, and she feels it. Desperation smells like intention. The moment she senses your life is still orbiting her, regret can't form, pity might, nostalgia might, but not regret. Regret only forms when the story in her head breaks. When she says, "I thought he would fade, but he's rising," that creates psychological tension. And tension creates emotion. So the first step is not action, it's identity. Decide who you are without her watching. Decide how you wake up, how you train your body, how you discipline your time, how you sharpen your mind. Not because she left, but because you finally stopped living on pause. You don't need to announce this. You don't need to show it. Life has a way of leaking information. Mutual friends talk, social media whispers, energy travels. And when she eventually hears your name, it won't sound the same anymore. It won't sound like loss. It will sound like distance. That distance is what creates regret. Now, understand this. Regret doesn't come from what you say to her. It comes from what she sees happening without her. That's where the real psychology starts working in your favor. When a woman leaves, her brain immediately creates a story to protect her decision. I had to go. He wasn't growing. I deserve better. This story reduces emotional pain. It keeps her from questioning herself. But that story is fragile. It only survives if your life proves her right. If you spiral, complain, or stay stuck, her story hardens. She feels justified. And once she feels justified, regret has no place to grow. But when your life contradicts her story, something dangerous happens inside her mind. Cognitive dissonance. Her emotions don't match her logic anymore. She sees you becoming healthier, calmer, more focused, more socially respected, and now her story cracks. Maybe I judged too fast. Maybe he wasn't the problem. Maybe I was. This is where most people self-sabotage. They improve loudly instead of quietly. They turn growth into performance. They want her to notice. They want her to react. But the moment your improvement becomes a message to her, it stops being powerful. It becomes transparent. Real growth doesn't announce itself. It shows up in posture, voice, routine, and boundaries. You don't rebuild your body to punish her. You rebuild it to rebuild your self-respect. You don't rebuild your finances to flex. You rebuild them so your future is no longer negotiable. You don't rebuild your social life to make her jealous. You rebuild it so your world doesn't shrink when one person leaves. This is the part no one warns you about, the silence phase. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop checking her page, stop asking mutual friends about her, your nervous system panics, your ego screams. It feels like you're losing control, but what you're really losing is dependence, and dependence is what killed attraction in the first place. Distance does something powerful. It allows her imagination to work without interference, and imagination is more emotional than reality. When she doesn't know what you're thinking, what you're doing, or who you're becoming, her mind fills the gap. If your life is visibly moving forward, her mind connects that movement to your absence from her life. This is where regret starts to form, not as sadness, as curiosity. What is he doing now? Why does he seem different? Why doesn't he need me anymore? That question hits deeper than anger, because anger says, I mattered. Indifference says, I evolved. And evolution is attractive to both men and women because it signals survival, leadership, and emotional safety. A person who can lose someone and still grow is someone who can lead themselves through pain. That's rare, and rarity creates value. So step 2 is this: stop trying to rewrite the past. Start building a future so real it makes the past look small. You don't need her to come back. You need to become the version of yourself she never expected to see. That is what makes loss echo. Here's the shift that turns growth into psychological impact: boundaries, not cold walls, not games. Boundaries that come from self-respect instead of fear. When someone leaves you, the instinct is to stay emotionally available just in case. You reply fast. You stay polite. You keep the door open. It feels mature, but emotionally it keeps you frozen in her timeline. You are still reacting to her world instead of building your own. And as long as you live in her timeline, you stay familiar. Familiarity kills emotional weight. Boundaries change the frame. They say, my life moves forward, whether you watch or not. This is not punishment. It's alignment. You don't block her to get a reaction. You don't disappear to make her anxious. You simply stop feeding a chapter that already ended. Psychologically, this does something powerful. It removes access, and the human mind values what it can't access more than what it already understands. When she can no longer reach you emotionally, she has to remember you instead. And memory is where regret is born. But there's a deeper layer. Most people think regret is about missing you. It's not. It's about questioning self-image. When she sees you stable, improving, and unbothered, it forces her to reevaluate the role she played in your life. If you were supposed to fall apart and you didn't, then her importance feels smaller. That's uncomfortable. And discomfort creates reflection. This is why revenge behavior backfires. Showing off new relationships, posting indirectly, sending cold messages. These keep you emotionally tied to her perception. You are still letting her define your behavior. True independence is invisible. It doesn't explain. It doesn't threaten. It just exists. Now, understand something important. Regret doesn't always mean she will come back, and that's not the goal. The goal is to reclaim your center, because when your center is solid, every interaction changes. If she ever speaks to you again, she will feel the difference immediately, not because you're distant, but because you're grounded. Your voice will sound slower, your reactions will be smaller, your need will be gone. And need is the opposite of attraction. Need says, I require you to feel whole. Stability says, I am whole and you are welcome, not necessary. That's when her emotional memory updates. She doesn't remember the version of you who was afraid to lose her. She remembers the version of you who learned to live without her, and that version creates regret, not through words, but through presence. This is also where many people heal accidentally. You start working, training, learning, socializing, not to replace her, but to replace the part of you that was waiting. And waiting is a slow form of self-abandonment. When you stop waiting, you stop sending emotional signals into the past. Your attention comes back to now, and attention is power. Where your attention goes, your identity grows. So step 3 is this: build a life that doesn't need a witness. Let your discipline be private. Let your peace be boring. Let your progress be quiet. Because the most unsettling thing for someone who left you is seeing that you didn't stop living. The final step is the one nobody talks about, because it doesn't look dramatic. It looks ordinary, but psychologically it's the most powerful move you can make: emotional neutrality. Not coldness, not bitterness, neutrality. the state where your heart no longer reacts to her presence or absence, where her name doesn't spike your pulse, where your value doesn't rise or fall based on her attention. This is the moment regret becomes real. Why? Because humans don't regret what they can still control. They regret what they no longer influence. As long as your emotions respond to her, she still has a role in your inner world. But when your reactions stop, when your mood is no longer tied to her behavior, her psychological position in your life collapses. And that collapse creates awareness. Imagine this from her side. She expected one of two outcomes. Either you would chase or you would resent. Both keep her emotionally relevant. But when you become neutral, you exit the emotional script she prepared for you. You are no longer predictable, and unpredictability triggers reflection. Reflection sounds quiet, but it's heavy. It shows up late at night. It shows up in small pauses. It shows up when she compares the man she left to the man she sees now and realizes the gap is wider than she expected. This is not about proving her wrong. It's about outgrowing the version of you that needed her approval to feel valuable. The moment your confidence becomes internal instead of reactive, your presence changes. People feel it. Conversations feel different. Even your silence feels different. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment she might start to regret losing you is usually the moment you no longer need that regret to feel whole. That's the paradox. Growth is not a performance. It's a separation from the emotional gravity of the past. You stop measuring your worth by whether she notices. You stop imagining what she would think. You stop crafting yourself as a message. Instead, you start crafting a life, a routine that respects your time, a body that reflects your discipline, a mind that can sit with pain without running from it, a social world that doesn't shrink when one person leaves. And when you meet new people, you won't be trying to replace her. You'll be meeting them as yourself, not as someone recovering. That's when your story changes. You're no longer the person who was left. You're the person who continued. If she ever looks back, she won't see the man she walked away from. She'll see the man who walked forward. And that's where regret becomes personal. Not because you hurt her, but because you showed her something she didn't expect, that her absence didn't end you. It refined you. Now ask yourself this, honestly. What part of your life have you been putting on pause because someone walked away? Write it in the comments. Say it out loud. If this message hit you, like the video, subscribe for more truths like this, and share it with one person who needs to hear it right now.